Just one big joke. It's a fucked up world. Here we are in. I ain't going nowhere.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Reason Reborn, episode 30? Yeah, 30. Damn, we're moving along, and apologies because we were distracted at the beginning of the show because me and him started like waxing nostalgic over some nerd shit. I'm gonna play with this tangent because this needs to be talked about right now. God damn it, this is more important than all the worldly news. I don't give a fuck about Korea and its negotiations collapsing because Trump's a fucking idiot. White people saying the N-word on stage, politicians making racist claims, more black people being stopped for bullshit by the police or being called, having the police called on them. None of that stuff matters. G4 TV is the thing right now. That's the hot news right now. Via Cardiacsumo, by the way, say hello to the always fresh and dapper Cardiacsumo people who's in love with fucking nerd girls from G4 TV.
I mean, first of all, what up, fam? Second, I'm just saying, like, back then I was younger and it was like, how should I put it?
No, you don't have to apologize because this kind of blends into our conversation when we had our big discussion about finding a nerd girl. I mean, fuck yeah, you wanted to fuck with these women who are sitting here talking about video games, something that you love.
And I remember when I first started looking at it, I wasn't really, and that might have just been a bit of sexism at that age, but like, I wasn't convinced at first that they were really nerds. But then you get to know them, like, yeah, they kind of know what's going on here. They're nerds. These assholes game and like look at comics and shit.
Like, honestly, I don't think it wasn't until the, oddly enough, the Attack of the Show days that it started to break form. I think Attack of the Show was kind of the, it was kind of that show that was like, okay, we're trying to take a turn away from what we were really about. Because before then, like I said, that shit used to be just all fucking gaming content with like this only syndicated show, of course, was Ninja Warrior. Ninja Warrior always was syndicated on there for some reason. But like for the most part, it was just like they would repeat the same goddamn show 5 times a day. You wouldn't care because it's like, fuck it, I don't mind. Or they just show like a new episode and then the older episodes after that and stuff like that. They were paper thin in the beginning on content, but as they started to grow, it seemed like once they got to the crescendo of the video game shit, somebody was like, we don't need to be doing all this video game shit, and just killed it with fucking Attack of the Show. And
so, I mean, why don't we back up for a second here? Because I'm not convinced maybe everybody even knows what G4 TV was. So maybe you should explain that this was a thing that existed first.
Okay, so G4 TV was a cable network that came out in the early 2000s that was dedicated to gaming and gaming culture. They had a lot of shows that revolved around video game themes, including a show called X Play. A lot of you may know who Adam Sessler is. He ended up being on the internet. What was the name of the channel that ended up going dead on YouTube? Oh, God.
I don't remember.
Oh, you don't remember? Yeah, they actually had a he actually, after like pretty much the fold of or the change in direction of G4, he ended up being on a website, Rev3 Games. That's what it was. And after that blew up, he's just basically now just doing his own thing, talking politics a lot, actually, which I find very, very funny. The pivot, he's actually an entertainment consultant, but if you actually follow Adam Sessler on the internet, he talks about a lot of political and social issues.
I actually went and looked at his Twitter. I'm like, man, this dude talking about like Trump and shit. This guy
he's if you like hearing thoughts on stuff like that from people, he's a good person to follow because he's definitely into all of that, even though that's not his immediate business medium. But basically they had several different shows that like it celebrated gaming, like X Play, which Adam Sussler and Morgan Webb both hosted, where they would go and do video game reviews and features on upcoming games. You had Arena, which was kind of in the early days of esports, where they would bring two gaming teams and pit them against each other in several different games. And the teams that ended up winning, like the best out of three, would win a prize. And it got to a point where they had them like as repeat champions. So if you came back, you won 3 times, and they'll bring you back at the end of the year and have like the tournament of champions. It was a pretty cool concept that they had going there. I mean, and again, this was like the wee early days of esports. This is kind of one of the catalysts of esports when you think about it. And, you had Cheat, where they gave you different techniques and cheat codes and strategies to beat in games and just a bunch of stuff. But eventually they started to change programming and expand into other areas to try to keep up with the times, and it didn't work, and it ended up folding.
Yeah, sad face. But yeah, I actually started looking into this. I'm the one who brought it up to Black, because I don't know what the fuck it was. All of a sudden I'm just like, I wonder if like G4 TV ever did like a comeback, or what's going on with all the people that used to work there as hosts and shit. So I went and looked at G4, which led me down the rabbit hole of different people, from Adam Sussler to Webb to Blair Butler. I forgot that dude I was looking at earlier. Like, when I was younger watching that show, it was just like an important thing in the gaming nerdy culture. I shouldn't just say gaming, because they had other stuff too. Obviously, there was like I think Attack of the Show covered more like gadgets and shit.
Yeah, Attack of the Show covered everything. They were talking about movies, gadgets, all types of shit on that.
Yes, so they would. There was other stuff that covered like tech and shit in general, but like it was just this thing in the culture that just suddenly went away and was never quite replaced. At least I wouldn't say it was replaced by anything in particular. I'm sure you have like a bunch of YouTube channels and all this shit and you have your IGN and whatever, but there's nothing like quite like what G4 TV was at the time. At least I would argue there isn't. And that's kind of surprising me. I feel like there should be something along those lines.
Yeah, no, they definitely have not repeated that. I mean, I guess some people might argue like Twitch's channel is the closest that you get, like Twitch's personal channel on Twitch TV, where they sit down and they have interviews, but they don't really do that, and they're not always. It's not consistent programming. You know what I mean?
Plus, an interview isn't really the same thing, right? Like, G4 had different things. They had, like you said, X-Play, right, versus Attack of the Show. Butler would come do some comic stuff every once in a while. Like, there was more themed programming, more specialized shit. It wasn't just people sat down and did an interview.
Right. And they had some people who are still kind of around, notable in the gaming industry, or at least people still remember, like Adam Sussler. A lot of people still remember him. Chris Hardwick. You see him now on AMC, The Talking Dead. G4 was pretty much his roots. Jeff Keighley was a host. Everybody knows who that goddamn bastard is. I can't stand Jeff Keighley for some reason. Don't ask me why. I just don't like him. I hate the gaming awards. It's just like some pretentious bullshit.
Black doesn't need to justify shit.
No, I don't.
That's not who he is.
Jessica Chobot.
With reasons.
Yeah, Jessica Chobot has roots there. Is she still on IGN? Or I don't know. Is Jessica Chobot still with IGN? Yeah, she is. She's the host of The Fix. So you ever watch The Fix on IGN, just know that she has roots with this place.
Point is, we need to bring it back, man.
Yeah.
And now that I think about it, we need more black people.
We need to just start our own TV network.
I don't know what it was. I just looked at the lineup on Google. I'm like, yeah, weren't a lot of colored folks.
No, but I mean,
I'm not knocking them. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no.
It looks weird now. Like, I don't think it looked weird at the time. Well, maybe it doesn't even look weird. I don't know.
Yeah, no, but going back to like our conversation when we had the whole black nerd thing. I mean, culturally speaking, back then it was still taboo to be like a person of color that was in the game, and if you were, you generally weren't that black person of color that was represented.
It's so fucking weird to say it back then because it doesn't feel like it was that long ago.
No, it wasn't. This network ran between 2002 and 2014, I believe. This Wikipedia link says. So,
and I'm just saying that to point out like how fast society changes without people noticing. Like this whole celebration of like black nerds and shit, like that's pretty fucking new.
Like yeah, we've existed for a while, but like the phenomenon, like the social phenomenon of it being all out there, yeah, that's just so fucking recent.
Wait a minute, she's credited as a writer with DC. Yeah, DC, man. I was looking at Blair Butler, like she has some credit with DC as a writer. I'm like,
oh really?
What do I got to do, man? I'm just gonna pick a random character and write a
Wikipedia link for the channel, and they got the notable host, and under hers it says like, yeah, Blair Butler, comic book correspondent for Fresh Ink. That's what she did on Attack of the Show. So pretty much that's what she was doing on G4. She was the comic book expert. That's funny.
That's what I remember her for. And like I looked at her Twitter a bit ago, and like I don't know if she's doing anything nowadays, but she still like talks about comics and shit, which is like proof to me that she was like one of those fucking nerds. Oh,
that's funny. She used to host Earth's Mightiest Hero show, Marvel's Earth's Mightiest Show.
Whoever in our viewer pool has connections with DC, hit me up. Maybe I'll be a writer for them. That's what.
That's very funny. She's an editor on Talking Dead, the Chris Hardwick hosted talk show about The Walking Dead. So clearly, she's still connected to some of these people. That's fine.
I want to write static. I bet.
All right.
In the realm of the internet, once you get down a rabbit hole, it turns into a wormhole and it sucks you in forever.
Yeah, no, but I mean, shit. That's damn. Yeah, we're gonna.
I don't mean to harp on it. But those were attractive people.
Well, that's the nature of TV. If you notice, like, it's weird to say this because it's not that far away. But back then, the precedent was to have the most attractive people that you can, or at least if it was a woman, she had to be as attractive as possible.
Yeah, it certainly seemed like there was a difference.
Like Adam Sessler was able to be the slub that he is.
Yeah, his hair was crazy back then.
Yeah, he had no hair, really. He was losing hair back then. Yeah, no, he had that flip up thing. It was like, you can tell you're losing your hair, Adam.
That shit was not
trying to hold on, but you're not holding on very well.
Like I saw a more recent image where he just like was bald, and I'm like, that looks great, bro. There's nothing wrong with it.
Nah, he was trying to hold on so fucking bad back then.
Exactly. Like, let it go. You look way better without it, bro. You look like a fucking lunatic with that shit on your head. Now you look like a goddamn man. You got a beard and shit. Nice shaven head. Like,
yeah, the shit was wild, but hey, that was a time, and it was a precedent on having a certain look, and especially with women, you had to be the most attractive woman in the world.
They should have held that dude to a higher standard. My point with saying that shit was like, nerds can look like whatever. You know? Don't try to make us think, don't make it look like we're all Urkels or some shit.
It's true.
I mean, Urkel had his swag and shit, but you know.
It is true. Because Morgan Webb, people would probably be like, oh, she's not really, but no, she really is into that shit. Like, she actually, it's funny because I just looked her up just to see where she's at. She's actually at an indie game studio right now.
Right now?
Yeah, she works for a studio called Bonfire Studio.
Oh, yeah. Like, see, because I remember, the reason I brought that up was like, I remember people like giving them a little bit of shit. Not just like my personal thought, but people would say like, they're attractive women, so they can't be into this shit. I'm like, as I watch them more, I'm like, I mean, I think they are. They seem at least to be. And you look at like their own Twitters and shit now, like they're still into that shit and they're just doing it.
Yeah, it's like they're on TV, but yeah.
All this hate. That's why we can't find these fucking nerd girls out here, because they keep getting shitted on by all these assholes.
Exactly. You're the problem, people. You're the problem.
You guys chase them into hiding, and now they just like live in some underground layer or whatever. I'm gonna shut up.
Yeah, okay. All right.
At some point, we should talk about some like new shit. But I'm just saying, one, if anybody got the power, like bring back G4 TV, and if anybody got the connection, hook me up with DC or some shit or Marvel. I'll totally write a comic for them. Great career change for me. You can give me a shitty character. I'll make it work. I'll make it work.
There you go. Well, DC, you can find a lot of shitty characters these days. Because
I mean, I feel like it's a mark of a good writer to be able to write a good story with anybody, right? Like, I mean, I forget who the fuck's writing Batman recently, but for those of you guys who are reading that shit, there was like a 2-part thing called like the Ballad of Kite Man, and that shit is amazing. So if anybody can make me interested in fucking Kite Man,
the Ballad of Kite Man,
they are a great writer. It was like this part of a story called The War of Jokes and Riddles.
That is just not interesting, because she's a man.
It's good, bro.
Yeah, if you did that and you're the man as a writer, that's some fucking bullshit. Because Kite Man, like, whoa, when I catch these wins, it's over for you, Batman. Like,
shit, bro. I gotta look that shit up to know who's writing that shit, because they are a fantastic. God damn, Naomi kicked that woman in the mouth. That dude is a fantastic writer.
Apparently, this is by Tom King and Clay Mann. Okay. I just Googled it because I'm like, he's lying. And then the first thing I see is how Batman's villain, Kite Man, went from joke to a tragic figure. I'm like, this is some real shit.
Bro, this run is fucking amazing. I can't even describe it, dude.
The fuck? Okay. Tangent over, because this is fucking with me. So,
I'm just saying, you got to start reading the comics again, bro. You got to come back.
Yeah, I do. Speaking of jokes, that is also tragic figures. Donald Trump. So he ain't getting his Nobel Peace Prize. Nah, that ain't happening.
Yeah.
Because North Korea has decided to pull out of talks for the summit, citing basically one of the reasons being America doing their military drill with South Korea, which is an annual thing. And mostly citing that they don't really trust Trump to do the right thing. Surprise, surprise. Nobody trusts Trump to do the right thing. Wouldn't have seen that coming, would we, people?
Was that announced today?
Yesterday, they made that announcement.
Because I remember there being some talk that the summit was at risk or whatever. But
yeah, they announced about a week ago the summit was pretty much probably not going to happen because of them doing that exercise. But it kind of is like on the hold. I would say it's not canceled, but it's like they're backing off simply because they don't know if they can trust Trump now.
The answer is obviously no. Bro, what do you mean?
Yeah,
of course, bro. Trust Trump, bruh.
Some people make that foolish mistake and have paid.
Like if I had a sandwich in a room with him and I walked away, I wouldn't eat it because I'd be like 110% sure that he fucked that sandwich while I was gone. All right, you can't trust this motherfucker with anything. Trust Trump.
Yeah. So the Korean talks are in jeopardy, and now like all the love and the feels that we were having from that are pretty much passed away. What do you think that they're gonna still happen?
Well, first, like I don't know what loves and feels you were talking about.
Well,
I
you
don't
know
know
how
what
everybody
he-
was romanticizing the whole like, oh my god, he did it. You know,
I
and
don't
how
know
he
who
was like
he was doing that.
exactly.
Like
And
most
his
of us were like, I mean, you got to be careful with these motherfuckers because they've like fucked with us before.
yeah.
Everybody else was very, trepidatious. Trump was the only one that was
You
like,
know, that's just us hating, coming from his supporters. We just don't want to admit that he's done a great thing. We need to give him the Nobel Peace Prize. Like, no, we just know how the world works, and especially how North Korea has that reputation. Be careful. We just told you to be careful, and everybody's like, "Oh, you're just like being a hater." Blah 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 blah. Okay.
the tone everybody else had except him was, hopefully this works out, but I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah.
Trump was and maybe someone in his administration were the only people that were like, what would he say? He'd say like, all these other administrations couldn't get it done. I got it done. Greatest deal maker, blah, blah, blah. He's the only one like swinging his dick around at that fucking summit that was happening. Not that I'm crapping on the, I guess, accomplishment or whatever you want to call it of beginning to organize such a summit, but it was a long way from denuclearization of the peninsula, as he would keep saying.
Yeah. It is what it is. We'll see if they can get back to the negotiation table. I just, there should be no surprise at this. If you paid attention to the way of the world.
As for, will North Korea come back to the table? I'm not sure because I don't really understand Kim Jong-un's behavior. I mean, first of all, him even agreeing to do all this was a bit odd in the first place. I think we all just kind of attributed it to, the effects of sanctions and whatnot weighing down on them and their economy and whatever. But even then, like his tone change was pretty radical. Like 1 minute he was like, we're pretty much gonna bomb you motherfuckers, and then the next, peace for everybody. We're gonna reconnect with our South Korean motherfuckers and hooray. And then his administration, or maybe I shouldn't call them an administration, his regime, got all crazy because America was doing drills with South Korea as they've done for a long time. Pretty routine shit. Which seemed odd considering like how much out of his way he seemed to go to show a lighter side. I mean, they had just released some captives back to us, so you look at that and it's really conflicting behavior. So I don't know what the fuck is going on in his brain. I don't know what his calculus is right now. Maybe he's just trying to rattle us for maybe he will come back to the negotiation table and he just did this to kind of rattle us before we negotiate, remind us that nuclear Armageddon is a possible thing.
Well,
for those who are getting complacent.
I think part of it is that he knows who he has in front of him. And it's sad to say this, but Donald Trump has made himself a very useful
Idiot.
Useful idiot. More of a useful pawn when it comes to playing a political game as far as upping your approval, making like playing yourself in a position where you're the lesser of two evils, because the guy's unhinged. He says whatever the fuck he wants. He doesn't like actually measure his tone, words, or actions. So they keep fucking around. They could frustrate this man to a point where he's going to do or say something stupid, and that would be all they need. The leeway they would need to put themselves in the role of the victim, or at least to retaliate. You know what I mean? It's like, well, we didn't do anything wrong necessarily. Sure, this whole like on off again thing with the summit, it's childish. It's childish. It's not good for the state of things, but it still is within the bounds of decorum, and I just feel like they're trying to bait Trump.
bait him into what? Acting stupider than he already does? I mean,
Exactly, because you could flip the table, especially on the international level, because if Trump does something significant that, say, the UN doesn't agree with, North Carolina can like, yo, hey, we were trying to do this peace thing. Then we had our doubts because we didn't know we could trust him. Now look at this fool. Look what he's doing. He's so mean. He's so crazy.
first of all, I'm sure Trump already does shit that the UN is not particularly fond of, like
oh no,
the Iran deal situation. But
yeah, no.
So I'm sure he's already on thin ice with the world.
But no, I mean, for North Korea's position, especially with the world and the UN also, kind of sanctioning them, and with China like having put pressure on them to try to play nice, it would be a good move to swerve yourself in a position where, like, everybody else who's doubting you could be like, yo, we wouldn't go that far. So,
it puts us in an awkward position. I was about to say even Trump's response to this type of shit, like when you listen to him talk about it, he'll say, maybe we'll make a deal, maybe we won't. It comes with like a threat. It's something along the lines of, if they don't make a deal, essentially I feel like he's saying essentially we'll murder you, because I don't know what he could be alluding to when he says the type of things he says. Like, if we come to an agreement, your safety will be guaranteed, essentially, your economy will be great, blah, blah, blah. And if not, we might blow up your country. I don't maybe I'm reading too much into what he says, but
no, he has no diplomacy. He has no diplomacy.
And a very serious, it's like a threat of war from the president. Maybe not in those exact words, but it's a little too close for comfort.
Yeah, I totally agree. We don't know what this man is going to do. And it's not a cool thing. So yeah, no, if Korea, that's the thing. Korea, we know Korea is batshit insane, but we're now batshit insane. So they can make an argument that, we tried to work with this guy, but he's just crazy, and it won't. You know what I mean? It won't go. It won't.
The captives.
Yeah, we won't look at them and just whatever, Korea, like we did with previous presidents. It's like they say some shit like that about Obama. Hell, they say some shit about even like that about Bush, and we're like, whatever, y'all stop playing. But now it's like, if you actually, that's their approach, they have a strong argument. They have a very strong argument.
Sure. That's such a weird fucking situation.
Yeah,
I just because of how proud he's been about this whole, we're gonna have a summit.
This was his victory. Out of all the things that he claimed victory for, he really has not had a victory.
That smile on his face when that crowd at his rally, which again, why is this fucker having rallies still? But that crowd at one of his rallies was chanting like Nobel Prize or whatever they were chanting. Like he looked like that was the best day of his life or some shit.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is it's like no one is. You don't have unilateral agreement on the tax bill. That was supposed to be your big victory to you. That didn't work. The whole immigration shit that you put through. Nobody's happy with your policies on immigration. So that's not your victory. All these other things that he's tried to initiate, and people are like, again, the one thing that most people, if not all, could come to agreement was like, yo, this is really cool that you guys were involved in negotiating peace between South and North Korea and setting the table for the United States and North Korea to quell hostilities. That's awesome. And now it's becoming something, it's unraveling. It's like, it's just strange. It's like this was supposed to be his victory. He wasn't going to get a Nobel Peace Prize for this shit, but he was going to be able to tout this shit. And it was like, this was going to be the one thing that none of us could dispute. We can make, our speculations on the depth of his involvement, but hey, at the end of the day, when the history books are written, it would have been under Donald Trump. There was peace made between North Korea and South Korea and the United States. You know what I mean? That's what we were. That was his victory. That's what we were going to teach our kids.
Yeah.
And now that's just all falling apart for him.
I mean, obviously, I still hope it goes well, but that issue and the way he responds to it, it makes me think about, it must have been like just a bit before the election. You know, I have these friends, they're a couple, and they're, I describe them as more like right wing, right? And when they were deciding to vote, at least the wife, because I was talking to her about it, you know, there was a bit of conflict, but I think she said that she went and voted for Hillary, you know, even though she was kind of against abortion or whatever her issue was. And one of her main reasons was because, you know, her husband is in the military, the Air Force, I guess. And her reasoning was that she believed Hillary was less likely to get us into wars or whatever, which when you have a spouse that would be sent to war, you know, you have extra incentive to not want war to happen. So when I'm watching this type of stuff, like, you know, him pulling out of the Iran deal, him doing this show with North Korea, making these not very funny threats of his, it makes me think back to what she, you know, her reasoning for voting in a way that she normally wouldn't, because I got the sense that she wouldn't normally vote for a Democrat. And again, for policy reasons, she wasn't particularly excited about Hillary, but that was like one of her main things was she believed Trump was just more likely to get us into armed conflict. And I guess she might have been right, you know? A year or so, what are we in, like a year and a half or so later?
Mm-hmm.
She, fate is proving her out, so there's that. I'm sure it's not the type of thing she would like to be right about.
Yeah, I know. That's the fucked up part about that.
It goes back to our conversation last week. Like when he says shit like this, there can be a human cost to what he says. If we have to send troops somewhere that we otherwise wouldn't have, those are potential lives lost that wouldn't have been if he would like act like a sane person. Excuse me, if he would be a sane person. I would hope he's not just acting.
No, he would be acting because he's not a sane person.
Maybe I'm setting my bar too high for the president of the United States.
Yeah, I know that. And again, the sadness of this is that the high bar for the president is to act like he got some goddamn sense. Yeah.
It's a bar he can't reach, but it's a lot higher than him.
Yeah, for someone who's supposedly 6'3", he can't reach that bar.
Hopefully that shit works. I saw him, I don't know if it was today, but I did see a clip of him saying like, it'll all work out. I can't tell you how or why, but somehow it always works out. I'm like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? It was the weirdest way to try to comfort the people I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like he just told me magic was going to solve it all.
Speaking of which, the shooting in Santa Fe, I didn't put this on the list, but I kind of didn't want to talk about it, but at the same time, I feel like I need to mention that we have had yet another shooting in the United States, which, dude, I'm pretty sick of that shit, for real. This is what, the 22nd this year?
The high number, whatever it was, I can't remember, but like,
dude, we're just in May. 22 school shootings. That's fucking ridiculous. Like, I don't understand how this has become the norm. It's like societal norm, and I believe with the 10 kids killed since, what I say, Columbine. Maybe not that far back, but we had 288 people killed in school shooting, which is ridiculous. Like, I think more people have got killed in school shootings than, no, that's the stat. More people have died in school shootings than they have in military action in the last like 10 years or more.
Yeah, I remember hearing that stat like yesterday or the day before or something, and like I haven't done so, but I felt compelled to like check that because I just found that so hard to swallow when they said that. That maybe I wanted it to not be true somehow, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it probably is. They said it, right? So I'm sure they're basing that on something. And it's not a good state of affairs to have schools be more dangerous than war zones. Well, battlefields, I guess. Maybe you can't call it a war zone if Congress has not acknowledged something is a war. But
yeah. Okay, here's the Washington Post's thing. This year in 2018, compared to 27 children who've died in 5 shooting incidents this year, only 13 members of the military have been killed while deployed. You should not have a 2-to-1 ratio of children dying in school to soldiers in military action.
one of the notable suggestions that came out of that was to have like less points of entry or something. There was somebody complaining about doors or some random shit. I don't know if
so the lieutenant governor of Texas made a point to say that part of the problem with school shootings is that there's too much access. If they would limit the amount of doors within these buildings, then killers wouldn't have so much access, and that way everybody would have to come through the same entry or exit way. And I'm sitting there like, so you want to funnel victims for a mass murderer? Because that's pretty much what would happen. Because there was a reason why this kid this time decided to go into the classroom and do what he did, because he knew he had an isolated area to get the person or the people that he wanted to take out. And it would be the same way if you actually took a building and limited the access. Like, I understand why government buildings do that, but government buildings are also secured by tons of armed, trained security personnel. So it's like, yeah, you could try to do that funnel shit if you want, but you're gonna run into an army. Whereas no, it's not like that with school.
So do we know that kid's motivation? You said like
part of the reason was he was upset that this girl turned him down. He admitted, like, part of it was because this girl wouldn't go out with him.
Okay. Was there some other part of it?
I mean, he just basically, let me go and look.
Because
but the main part was like, yeah.
I remember when that news broke, and I don't think at the time we really knew.
Now, let me see if that, no, it may not be that that's true. See. But, I know one of his things was the reason why he did what he did, how he did it was he didn't want to go after people he liked or who were cool with him, so he didn't target them. So I'm sure it has to do with him, like, mistreatment by people who didn't find, him agreeable. And they said he actually said that he spared his friends, and maybe it was in a letter or something. He spared the people that he liked because he wanted his story to be told. So he went in there with the intentions of actually dying, probably. For him to say something like that, like, you had to have been expecting to die.
Fairly calculated.
Yeah, and I guess in a win for the NRA, this wasn't done by an AR-15, so they can tout that, I guess. He actually had a shotgun. He had his father's shotgun and .38 caliber pistol. Which begs the question, how the fuck he gets his hand on his dad's gun? Where the fuck does his dad keep that shit?
in home, obviously, where he also lives. So
No, but I'm just saying, like,
I mean, yeah, it could have been locked up, but
locked, or like in a secure place where your kid doesn't know. Why does your kid know?
so I don't feel like that AR-15 shit should be a win for the NRA.
I said that facetiously. I'm not like.
But so I think some people actually would take that for a win because you have many of those people who are like stupid liberals. They think AR-15s are special guns, blah blah blah. They're just guns like any other guns or whatever, and it's like, but that's part of the problem. And I feel like liberals do focus too much on the fact that it's an AR-15, it's a weapon of war, and blah blah blah. Yes, it is, but you can cause a lot of damage with other guns too. Like, I don't know. I feel like there was so much focus on the AR-15 aspect of the issue, which, fair enough, you shouldn't be able to like purchase one of those, I guess. But those aren't the only guns that are used to kill people.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Okay, I'm looking. CNN just put up an article a few hours ago. So, like, yeah. One of the moms of the students, she's the one who came out and said, like, she feels it was like part of his motivation was that his daughter kept rejecting him because she was actually in that classroom. The father says that he believes that his son was being bullied.
The father of the shooter?
Yeah, and that's why, because he says he was a good boy. That and basically is making the claim that they pushed his son to do this, which. I'm sorry, but there's a lot better ways to deal with bullying than murdering a bunch of people. So using that as a justification to me is like, yeah.
I mean, I guess that hops into the question I was about to ask. Why is this the technique that people are increasingly using? Like, what is it about, shit is hard, so I'm going to murder a bunch of people that's going on there? There's something in the culture that's just like making that seem attractive.
Yeah, and it's the way it's like you're getting the like bullshit things. Like there was another politician in Texas I read last night who's blaming video games and abortions for this type of behavior in our children.
Abortions?
Yeah, that threw me for a loop too. Like, that threw me for a loop too. Like, how do you pick those two as the reasoning? And also in this article I'm looking at right now on CNN, he's talking about they're showing like a clip of someone from the NRA basically saying that he's linking the shootings to Ritalin.
Ritalin.
I guess if your kids
on drug for ADD or something,
huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what? The drug focused them to want to murder?
Okay, so. I guess two things. One, this might be a little racist, and I might just be like, overcome by certain images and shit. But what is like the race ratio with these kids that do this shit? Because I remember when I have
not been a black kid to do this. The only black, honestly, and it's funny because you look at this. The only black kid to actually do something similar was Levo Malvo.
I'm not familiar with that name.
The DC sniper.
Ah.
Him and the other guy, Levo Malvo was the little kid who was involved in the situation with the other guy. I forget the name of the other guy. But yeah, he was the one with the guy who shot a couple of victims because the guy was basically tutoring this kid to become a murder sniper like him. So,
exactly. I bring that up because I believe I was like, I know where I was. I was heading to like a restaurant or whatever, and I was in my phone and I saw that headline when we saw a picture of that dude's face, that kid whose name I've already forgotten. And I remember thinking, dark thought here, but I was like, he's not black again, which felt weird because it's like, it almost felt like we were overdue for a black kid, which I know that comment like might have weirded people out. Like, you're making light of this tragedy. I'm not.
No, it's not.
I just found myself suddenly thinking like, it's odd to me that none of these kids are black.
Well, I think part of the reaction too is like we don't want to hear it being a black person simply because the reaction would be extremely out of proportion.
I suppose, but that wasn't really my concern. It wasn't that I didn't want to. It was more like when I saw that, I started to think, this goes to my question to you before, when I said, is there something about the culture? I'm starting to, the culture that makes this happen. I'm wondering, is there something about like,
I think
the culture they are in particular? Because in order for a specific group of people to only be the ones acting that way, it makes me think that there must be some different stimuli for them that doesn't exist for everybody else.
I can definitely see that because I've seen many people make the point that, you don't hear about inner city mass shootings like this. And it's like, that's very true. Yeah, there are a lot of inner city murders. But as I've stated to someone before, have you noticed that when it comes to things like that in the Black community, it's a very one-on-one isolated thing, or it's like a particular group versus a particular group.
Right.
It's like the random like violent crimes that you see in the Black community that may come close to this is like you hear like mother 2 killed her kids or boyfriend kills his girlfriend because he heard she was cheating on him. It's like the whole like I'm gonna take my frustration and anger out on all of you does not seem to equate for African Americans. It's like I take my frustrations out on the specific target. I'm not going to blame everybody for the transgressions of a person or a handful of people. I'm going to address that with them.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to put my finger on there. Is like, what is it that is different about these kids or whatever milieu they're being brought up in that makes punishing everybody an attractive tactic to them that just doesn't show up for pretty much anybody else? I mean,
and what's the other weird thing too is that you look at the dynamics of the schools again. Maybe it's just something cultural that needs to be addressed. But when you go to an inner city school, there's alarms, there's an armed guard. They're making you have to go there with clear book bags in some cases because they feel like it's just so violent and like you might do something and what have you, and you have to everybody has to file in and be checked at the gates. In some schools, I've seen like extreme cases like that. I believe there's a couple of schools in Baltimore that are like that. But it's like there's this extreme heightened sense of like prison-like security to inner city schools. Yet you don't get things like this in inner city schools. You didn't get them before they started putting all these things. Again, it was a random like, okay, he might be a gang member. He sees another gang member, so they're going to duke it out type thing. Or somebody comes around who's not supposed to be around there and causes trouble with kids. But it's never been a consistently weird worry that if even with all the violence I remember from the 90s and whatnot, when the drug violence and stuff went crazy, you worried for your kids' safety, but not on this level. You know what I mean?
Sure. I think it's, again, I started off by saying I don't want to make it too much of a race thing, but and I don't have any data to back this point up that it's largely just non-colored people or whatever. Like, I don't have any data that I can use to prove that. I'm admitting that's just like an intuition I have based on the imagery I've been seeing. But if that is true, I think it would be useful to look at why these particular types of children are more susceptible to this than other types of kids. I don't have an explanation for it if it is true, and I think it's worth looking into because I think it would make it would be a good way to better understand that issue and deal with it in the future, I think. Because again, now that I'm thinking about it, I just don't really have a good explanation for why that seems to be the way it is. The second thing I was going to say is this compulsion on the right to blame everything but guns is just out of fucking control. I mean, riddling abortions indoors.
The Doors thing is just the worst. Like,
I mean, I even saw, some other post from some dude who was like frustrated, like, why are we always blaming the guns? We need to look at mental health and blah, blah, blah. Kids need attention and love and blah, blah, blah. And yes, they need all that shit. Why is it always this false dichotomy that has to be put up? It's either guns or it's not guns, right? Like, can guns not just be at least a factor within a larger set of problems? Yes, mental health is a problem. There's plenty of issues. Why can't guns just happen to be one of them? Why is access to guns, rather? Why can't that just be one of the many problems here? I never understand why it is such a huge deal to just acknowledge that.
Yeah. And I know you don't want to make about race, but you have to also go back to some of the like narratives too. It's like in these situations, the narratives are always like, it's not about guns, it's about the people, it's about the mental health, it's about the situations, doors, blah, blah, blah. But the press for ending gun violence and like the finger pointing for gun violence within inner cities in minority areas is something that they're very much willing to talk about. It's like, we need to get these guns off the streets. That's one of the biggest like selling points, especially with Trump when it came to Chicago. We need to stop giving these people access to guns. They shouldn't have these guns in these places because they're causing so much violence in Chicago. But it's just like, well, wait, you're complaining about the inner city access to weaponry. Why aren't you complaining about these little fucking crazy ass kids who are murdering their classmates for random reasons, for unattainable reasons? Like, this guy would have intentionally murdered probably the whole school except for the people who he liked, if given the chance. Yet it's like everybody wants to sit back and psychoanalyze and talk about, well, let's find out what made him do it. Like, because it has to be a reason. And it's like everybody gives a soft approach because they don't want to make them seem like a monster and blah, 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 blah. But it ain't nothing to be talking about how horrible the violence is in the cities, how these people need to be, going to a comment that he made during the speech about immigrants, about how they're not humans and they're animals. It's like, yo, you're quick to say that, like, is this kid, do you consider this like act of this kid to do like humanizing something that like is not animalistic? He fucking walked into a classroom and let spray, irregardless of any human being's life at stake, because he's mad.
We should address that not human things at some point. But I mean, I do think it is worth talking about, what made these kids do that stuff, and that is all important. And I don't want to get away from that issue, but when I see people talk about it, people who have an erotic fixation on guns, essentially, they always have to remove that from part of the argument. Their starting point is, it had nothing to do with the gun. Now let's look at everything else. And it seems like an irrational starting point, because it's not like people on the other side are saying it's only the guns, it has nothing to do with mental health. Like, nobody says that on the other side of the debate, right? So
right.
Why must you force this weird little line in the sand? And when you do it, you end up with people talking about doors and abortion, because they will contort themselves in any way to get away from this issue about gun availability.
Yeah, no, it's just weird. It's like everybody wants to make this about, like, we just want to get rid of guns. It's like nobody's necessarily say you have to ban all guns, but yeah, there should be some change. It's just like, it's funny because I was listening to this podcast and I was mad because they kind of stole the idea that I was thinking about. Weirdly enough, at the time when they finally brought it up, it's like the guns weren't the kids. He didn't get purchase them, and people were trying to say, well, I mean, he just got it from his previous house, and they were legal guns. That doesn't say nothing, but it's like, well, it does say something to gun safety, because those parents could have been a little bit better at keeping the guns. And like, why can't we entertain the idea of finding people in these situations? I hate to say it because it's like, yeah, I'm sure he's going through the emotions of knowing that his son's a murderer. But I feel like if you would introduce the idea of like, say I have a gun, you take my gun and you murder somebody with it because I have a gun in an easily accessible place. I should probably pay some type of penalty for not properly storing and protecting my gun, because you're supposed, from what I understand, you're not even supposed to keep it loaded in some places in the house, or at least make it that easy to access the, like, I don't know what the laws are, but there needs to be some type of like, law that like dictates that, hey, if you don't properly store and protect this gun, we got issue with you.
I'd want to know what exactly the punishment should be.
I would make it a financial thing. I wouldn't say like, oh, you go to jail too or anything like that. I think that would be extreme. But
I mean, sure. I mean, I guess I'm just looking for the balance because I want something strong enough to make a point, but not like so strong that it makes you seem like you are also the murderer here.
Yeah, exactly. But like the responsibility is like, yo, dude, why don't you? Because I think a lot of people would kind of be a little better in the handling of their weapons. Because let's be honest, a lot of people in this country buy guns because they think they're cool, they like them, or they get them for protection, but they don't necessarily learn how to properly care for these things and how to use it. It's just like somebody retweeted on my timeline earlier today a picture of two dudes butt naked with their guns adorned on them, and it's like, yeah, these are responsible gun owners. Like, dude, you got a shotgun holding it in between your legs. Don't you think something might happen?
I mean, sure. Yeah, no, we're so fucking, because even that, what you just said about people not being properly trained and understanding how to store and use guns properly, like, that is part of the issue with the availability. People who don't know what the fuck they're doing can just have a gun.
Yeah.
And I think one fair thing would be require more knowledge, more safety, more testing to see if they can really handle that responsibility. I wasn't allowed to like get a driver's license until like a year after I had my learner's permit. So
that is one of the perfect examples, because it's just like, yo, especially here in the state of Maryland, it's like you can't get a license if you don't A, pass a driver's test, B, get a learner's, C, take a mandatory like 4-week course in which you sit in class and you learn the road rules, as well as you have to go at least 2 to 4 times out on the road with a trained professional driver. Then you can sign up and schedule your driver's test. And then you go to your driver's test, and if you pass it, you can get your license. If you don't pass it the first time, you have to reschedule a couple of months later. You can't just immediately go back. I think no, they may have changed it to like at least 2 weeks now, I believe. But it's like the process of getting a license and getting the ability to control a car, which a lot of gun nuts try to make the argument like, well, cars kill people too. It's like, yeah, but look at all the shit you got to go through before you even get to the point where you like can have the possibility of hurting someone in the car. There's a lot of fucking loopholes to go through that shit.
And I don't see why because it was the NRA at some point that was really toting the idea of gun safety. Well, maybe not recently, but a long time ago, that was their shit. So
yeah,
I mean, you're having to explain this to the exact type of people who you would think would be the ones who are really on board with that. Nowadays, these are the type of people that are like stupid liberals. They don't know shit about guns. Yeah, and neither do a lot of the people who own them, which is kind of the point.
Yeah, you want responsibility. You need to be addressing, instead of like slashing back at people. You should try to educate them, but they don't. They just like be like, whatever, guns for everybody. Fuck you, liberals. It's like, no, it shouldn't be guns for everybody. There should be some. I don't know when people get it, because I'm wondering, how did his father get the gun? And especially in the state of Texas, where I believe it's open carry and they have very loose gun laws. Probably didn't take his father that much. He probably didn't have to tell him, yeah, I got kids in the house, because that's stuff that should be important in the process. You should have to go through a thing. Do you have kids in the house? What's the dynamic of your home arrangement? Who would have access to this? Are they trained with a gun? All that stuff should be pertinent information that should run down the line. You should have to be licensed before you purchase a gun. And even after you have your license, you should still be given some type of brief overview and something like that, to at least find some code of satisfaction for owning a gun beyond, yeah, you want a gun? Oh, okay, you good. You don't have no priors? Oh, that's fine. Then, you can get your gun in a day or 2 or 2 weeks. But you can walk out with these other guns if you really wanted a gun right now. Because I've heard of gun shops doing shit like that. Where, like, if you want certain, like, quote unquote specialty weapons, you would have to wait, but they'd be willing to give you smaller caliber weapons off the bat. It's just like, fuck.
Yeah. I don't want to spend the whole time on this particular topic, but it is a tragedy, and I just wish there wasn't this team mentality around that specific facet of a more complicated issue, because a lot of this conversation turned into being almost exclusively about guns, and it is a point we shouldn't disagree that highly on. I mean, if you're more right-leaning, maybe you are less inclined to restrict gun access than somebody who might be more left-leaning or whatever, but there was a reasonable compromise, and I don't feel like what we have now is reasonable. Not that this kid was able to go and buy that gun, but he clearly had it in the house with an irresponsible gun owner. So I think we should at least talk about those fucking fines. Although I feel like once your kid has killed a bunch of people, it's probably too late. But
no, but I mean, it's something that can be put in place now. And even if your kid did, it's like, sorry to add insult to injury because your child is a wacko murderer, but dude.
I mean, it's something that at least gets people thinking about the fact that you can't just have a gun and not store it safely. I remember when I was a kid, I had this friend, Southern white kind of dude. I went to his house once and his dad had like this gun collection, and it was just kind of like on show. It wasn't even locked up or anything. Like if I wanted to, I could just grab one of those guns, right? Like,
yeah, and that's the biggest.
And to
problem.
be fair, they seemed like a family that had some respect for guns and shit. So I'm assuming they knew how to be safe and shit, but it certainly wasn't locked. It was just a bunch of guns that existed, and they just had them. It was just part of the house, like a decoration or something.
Yeah, no, people don't treat guns as responsible as they should, and yeah, that's part of the reason why most quote unquote dirty liberals want to have the discussion, because like, if y'all not gonna do right, we need to put some restrictions here and add some stuff to the mix.
And again, you can do both. You can address mental health and limit access to guns for people who should not be wielding them.
Yeah, no. And even if they fool you on a test, I would rather they fool you on a test than you to just be like, whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
That less than human shit Trump said, as I slowly skate off this this shooting topic, excuse me.
Yeah.
I just want to say, like, really, come the fuck off.
Yeah, so Donald Trump gave a speech in which he talked about immigration, and he made a comment where he reflected on how we need to stop the flow of immigrants because they're not people and they're animals. Now, I guess, quote unquote, to his fairness, he was directing his ire, of course, at the MS-13, which he seems to think every Hispanic in the world is.
I don't feel I feel like he clarified the MS-13 thing later,
Yeah, he did.
which was so I felt like that was more like a walk back. And I mean, you know me, normally I'm pretty charitable about that type of thing. But I feel like Trump has an established enough pattern at this point where you can assume he was just probably being racist. He has enough of a history that I'm less inclined to just give him the benefit of the doubt now.
Yeah, no, because you shouldn't say that. That's it's like this has been a week for political stupidity. This stupidity has spread across the nation, which has led things to like the GOP candidate in the state of Georgia for the governor's seat renting a bus and calling it the deportation bus, in which he would like to use to help facilitate Trump's drive to get rid of illegal immigrants or any immigrants. His bus said "Follow me to Mexico" on the back. That killed. That was.
Do you feel? Yeah, I mean, because you mentioned this. Well, I won't bring up that other article, but do you feel like Trump's presence is exacerbating this type of behavior, making it just more likely? Because
he's made it comfortable. Like seeing the president of the United States be comfortable in flouting like sexist, racist, questionable things. It's emboldened that crowd. I mean, I've talked to you about this before, but I see people who like I've thought were cool all of a sudden start tweeting all these outrageous things and retweeting shit like about when is Obama going to pay for his crimes and like we need to get rid of all the Muslims. It's like, yo, I didn't know that you seriously felt that strongly about it, but here you are retweeting people like Tommy Lahren and Candace Owens and Donald Trump himself, and loving that shit, and you starting to get to the point where you're starting to say things that are questionable to me, and all that. It's like, yo, you eject a lot of people. I'm sure a lot of us have ejected a lot of people out of our lives since that man gained office. Yeah,
I mean, any other president said that shit, it would be a huge deal. I feel like this wasn't even a blip on the radar.
Well, no, people have made a big deal about it, somewhat, but I think we're at a point now where so much of this shit happens that you have numbed yourself in a way, and that's the biggest problem. Is that a lot of us are becoming way too numb at the shit, and it's like he's clearly doing something that he's not supposed to, and it's like, but we don't want to call him out because we're just tired. Like you get tired, you wear yourself thin with this administration and the people who seem to want to follow his tactics. Because you have by the way, the video of this dude with all these rifles is just hilarious. By the way, the guy running for office, it's like, oh my god, he's just like kitted out. God damn it, gotta love America. But it's like, okay, so they had that. You have the politician in Texas who set up a trust fund to where his kids can only basically get the full amount of it so long as they marry a white person. Which I saw that's like, so we're back to the whole purity of race thing. Is that what it is?
So what was I about to say there? Well, first, same thing I said about the people who would get all pissy at Donald Glover, and who get pissy about black people getting with non-black people in general. You don't understand fucking science. Like, I don't understand this purity fixation you guys always have with race. We're all of the same species. We're all human. That's why we can mate. There's a reason like a dog and a goldfish can't fucking create some sort of hybrid, right? They're not the same species. So they can't do that. Basic biology. So I'm not delving too deep into that, but I feel like that's basic. That's a basic way to
what the fuck would a goldfish dog look like? And what would it be? Amphibious? Would it only survive in water?
We don't have to guess because not possible. So I don't know what it would look like. It would look like a fucking disaster. But my point is, like a very basic, useful explanation of what a species is essentially just to say, if you can mate and create offspring that are fertile, so they can also have kids themselves, you're probably of the same species, right? And obviously, humans of different races can do that. So this fixation on purity is just scientifically stupid.
No, but this guy qualified his whole thing by saying, well, this is just what I believe in.
That was what I was about to hop on too. This is just my, first of all, I don't like the way he called it traditional family values.
Right.
Which is a nice way to say that being racist is part of traditional family values, which perhaps it is, but I just don't even know how to fucking address that statement that this is just part of what I believe in. Sure, you believe in something stupid and racist. That's kind of the point, the problem, isn't it?
To an aside, why do people think like if they say things like that it qualifies and dispels any type of reaction? We've talked about this before, and I'm gonna keep harping on this point. Stop doing that. You're not going to save yourself any other grief by trying to give like some weird platitude about like, well, I have a right to my opinion. But you just mad because I'm honest? Bullshit like that. Fuck yeah, I'm mad if you're quote unquote honest. Because one, I think you're lying. Two, you on some bullshit. And I have a right to respond. It's like you feel like you have the right to say what you want to say. Again, people, say it with me. Can have the right to say whatever the fuck you want. Just know you will get these hands mentally or verbally. I don't know why people don't understand that.
So the reason for that, to put it simply, is just that people feel like opinions matter more than anything else in the world. You see it applied to religion all the time. It could be like the most heinous thing possible, but, well, this is my faith, this is what I believe in, and that's just kind of supposed to be a valid explanation for why you can believe in something heinous and stupid. Really, it's a pointless statement. Obviously, it's what you believe in. You're the one fucking saying it, right? Like, this didn't just come out of thin air. So I'm not sure why you always feel the need to tell us that that's what you believe in. Duh, that's why we're having this conversation. If nobody believed in this, we probably wouldn't bring it up, first of all. And second, people feel like if it is an opinion they hold, then because, in America, especially, we emphasize the idea of freedom of expression and shit. You can believe in whatever you want, and you can, but that doesn't make you above criticism, and it doesn't make your ideas not stupid or evil or racist just because you have them. I see this all the time when people debate and talk. Well, this is what I believe in, and that didn't make your stance like invulnerable all of a sudden because you said that. I can still criticize it any way I want. It's not any less stupid because you believe in it.
Yeah, it's just weird, but yeah, his whole I need you to marry a white person to get money. That's why do you even blackmail your kids like that? Like that's just fucking. Oh, that's when you know your racism is strong. Like you're really trying to you're basically trying to conduct your children's lives for them and make their happiness just to appease your sensibility. That's just dumb. That's just, now I'm really mad. That's just dumb. Like seriously, that is just the dumbest thing I've ever heard. No, it's not the dumbest thing I've heard in my life because the NFL decided to do the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. So it's apparently come out that during the NFL's winter meetings, maybe, or during the current set of meetings that they're going through, that the idea of penalizing a team 15 yards for having a player kneel during the national anthem has been, strong, deep discussion amongst the league and its owners. Which to me, for me, I say to that, y'all some bullshit. Y'all can kiss my ass with that shit because that is ridiculous. You're basically trying to manipulate the system to keep people from doing something that by rule isn't against the rules.
So did they make that decision? Because I thought they were just thinking.
No, they're still analyzing it. They're thinking about it. I don't think it's going to come to fruition. NFL's already lost viewership because the fucking rednecks got mad because they had to see, these players being disrespectful to the flag and blah, 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 blah. So from what I understand, ratings went down on the NFL. So this is kind of their, I guess they feel like this is the way to bring people back. Like maybe if we penalize them, then all the fucking rednecks will love us again. Even though you'll just alienate the people who are sensible and who like football. I don't know. Does that make sense to you? I mean, that makes sense to me.
Good.
No, I'm saying that makes sense to me. Don't that make sense to you? Like that's what the outcome would end up being.
I was just about to say I don't really have a dog in this fight because I don't really give a fuck about the NFL. But I would just say it's such a stupid thing to even bother talking about. Because I mean, so many people made this into a way bigger story than it really is, and by people I mean like Trump, for example, largely stoked the fires of this, where it's like these people hate America, they don't want to stand for the flag, blah blah blah. Like the right wing in particular made this such a big fucking deal, and it never was. It was some people who were protesting in the most benign way fucking possible by just like not standing up. It is the most non-disruptive thing you could probably do. Yeah.
Not like they were sitting on the like sideline chanting "Fuck America, fuck America, fuck America."
They weren't like those people who like stand in the street and block cars and do that shit. They were just at one point during their day, they took a knee for like a few seconds. Like,
yeah.
People blew this issue up into something far more dramatic than it ever was.
Yeah, they did,
and they continue to do it, and it's just stupid.
Very stupid. I totally don't get why this is still a thing. Like when I saw this article, my first thought was like, y'all still talking about this? Like, dude.
I'm not saying that as somebody who's a big Black Lives Matter supporter or who just agrees with that notion. I'm just saying it is an American who values freedom. If they want to kneel, who gives a shit? It's not the end of the world. It doesn't even affect the game. It's not like they just stopped in the middle of the game and took a knee. They're not even at the point of the game where they're even playing. So who cares?
Yeah, and I think we went over this again about the overheightened sense of like the national anthem when it comes to sports. And I still maintain that people don't really give a fuck about it. You use that as the break time, the bathroom time. Just do whatever you can. Most people aren't standing at attention at home. So I don't know why y'all tripping. At the same time,
side of that debate had to make it about love of country, which was inaccurate and stupid. And I remember I had like a long fucking post on this shit somewhere. I might pull up like.
Yeah, no, but it's like at the same time, you guys are trying to accuse these players of not being patriot enough. Why haven't you called the NFL out for their lack of patriotism, quote unquote, considering that the only reason they show the national anthem is because they're getting paid to do it by the government?
I mean, who cares? Like, you could say the same thing about, if you guys are really patriots, why don't you ever call out Trump when he's shitting on the military? Or guys like several individuals, really. I was thinking of McCain at that particular moment, but You have a president who doesn't give a fuck about the military. It doesn't bother you at all. It's not about lack of patriotism. It's just another reason to pick on the opposing group.
Yeah.
You can label them as America haters, and that's one more reason to tell them to fuck off. That's about as simple as it gets.
Pretty much, but they won't see it that way, which is annoying as fuck. I was like, okay, cool. Whatevs. But yeah, this shouldn't be a thing. This should not be a penalty for this. This is a pregame ritual. It has nothing to do with the game, and you want to actually affect the game with that shit. Come on. Like,
Which
okay.
it's another one of the things I hate to drag race into, even though it is actually about race. But it's like, I believe Trevor Noah did a segment or something like this once. What can Black people do that isn't going to be acceptable? Like, we're supposed to value the idea in this country that you can protest and not be like extremely punished, or not killed or jailed or financially, in this case, punished, or whatever the case may be. Maybe that last one was a stretch, but in general, being able to protest is an important thing in this country, is my point. And you can't even just not stand. Because I remember before, like when Black Lives Matter was becoming more popular, you had certain protests where people were in the streets and people were like, they're blocking cars and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, fair. I mean, you're blocking the cars that, that could be dangerous, whether there's like an ambulance in that group or some shit that needs to get to a hospital. You never know. I didn't agree with when people did that type of shit to protest. I don't agree with that strategy. But then it was like, they would go and protest at particular places, and then you'd hear about noise complaints and blah, blah, blah. And now you can't even just not stand. At what point do you stop being such whiny little bitches and allow people to engage in one of the things that makes our country and not like one of these dictatorships elsewhere?
Yeah.
So sick of people who say they love America and yet don't appreciate one of the most important aspects of it, and it's the ability to protest.
Yeah, I know. It's just, huh?
Yeah, a little ranty there, but it's just
no.
I don't want to hear it anymore. I don't want to hear people fucking say they love this country and they don't know shit about what makes it great at all.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's just that I'm just like, y'all just like, the arguments are just so all over the place. And at the end of the day, it's just catering to how they feel. So I just hate the fact that so many people feel that way in this country. It's just a damn shame.
It's a wide lack of understanding about what is that Trump guy that always says "Make America Great Again." I need you to explain to me first of all, do you understand why it was ever great to begin with? Because I'm not convinced. Basic American great shit that you guys just don't even agree with.
Yeah, exactly. I would love to.
A lot of you are developing a very authoritarian bent, which is concerning for a lot of reasons. But first and foremost, because it's not very American.
No, it is not at all. They think it's American. Just like being able to say and do whatever you want without any repercussions seems to be that way still, even in music. So yeah, I think I'm gonna let this be the final subject because I want to actually talk to you about an idea for later this week. But have you heard about the Kendrick Lamar incident? I just sent you the article.
No, but I'm surprised that's the final topic. I thought you were going to mention the how that Trump guy said he was being spied on.
That's what I want to say.
Yeah,
that's why I say I want to say something else for I want to actually make that a focal thing because there's a lot too deep to go into that.
Sure.
It's like you're getting we are now sitting here having a constitutional crisis. For those who don't know what Cardiac is mentioning. So the back and forth between the Trump administration has gone pretty weirdly, I would say, since the beginning, since the ending of our last show, because after our last show, that's when Giuliani got up and was making the comments about how a president shouldn't be able to be legally touched. And then they rolled back and show his statements where he was like, yeah, a president can be arrested and the president can be prosecuted. He's not above the law and shit like that. It's like, well, wait. You just told us that if you look in law books, it says that they can, but now you're trying to walk that back and saying that, you know, he didn't mean that and all that stuff. Meanwhile, you have Trump still raging about Russia. He's ordered the FBI to, what was it exactly he said he wanted them to do?
Look into
I think he wanted to look into the sources of the email and what they were used for to see if there was actually some Democratic collusion and things like that with Russia in this matter.
Fucking guy attacks everybody so much I couldn't remember what exactly he said.
Yeah, he also has been getting comments from his supporters that he needs to what was it that they say they need to do to Rosin somehow like some way they were trying to like put him in a position where they could strip him of his powers by I guess kind of like putting him in legal trouble or stripping him of his powers first. It was like it's a weird convoluted, and that's why I say I want to kind of save that for later because I feel like
I would save it because I would also like to talk at some point about Trump urging the postmaster fucking dude to the next stage in his war with Bezos, essentially.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's still trying to get Amazon because Amazon's costing him money, even though the majority of the profits that the post office took in was due to Amazon, and Amazon's actually kind of keeping them afloat in a way with their special shipping rates.
He was pushing the postmaster general to. I'll save it, but like it's a very scary fucking idea. The way he's trying to push. He's trying to, in general, attack fucking people he doesn't like using the government. It's a problem that we will save because we're going to talk about who? Kendrick Lamar?
Kendrick Lamar, yeah. And that's why I want to do kind of a special thing about like the links of presidential power and like what could be done because it's a lot of stuff floating around from that Russia thing that has been brought to attention, and it's going to be very, very wild because I feel like we're coming to a head with that, and I feel like we need to dedicate more time.
I hope before it all ends, we see the PP tapes.
I'm not trying to see Trump peeing on people.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like it would be like, what was that thing back in the day? 2 Girls, 1 Cup? Kind of like that.
Yeah.
Like nobody wants to watch it, but like everybody's gonna watch it.
You know, I've never seen that.
Neither have I. Most of the country seemed to.
Yeah.
And I at least know what it was. So
yeah, I learned what it was, and it was like, yeah, I don't want to see that.
it's just gonna be one of those things that most people can't resist. Although ironically, I guess there are 2 people on the podcast right now that resisted it.
Ew.
I'm just saying.
Ew.
I feel like the history books need this video.
Ew.
It'll be just like the Nixon tapes. Like we need the PP tapes.
So Kendrick Lamar did a show where he brought up, I'm not going this place. No, we're going to not go down this deep dark tunnel. Sir, calm down. But Kendrick Lamar did a show and he had a crowd participation moment where he had someone pick a fan out of the crowd to recite his lyrics, who claimed that they know his lyrics, had them come up and show the world like how good they are at Kendrick Lamar's lyrics. So he got a young, I believe it was a young white woman to come up and she started kicking verses. I forget what song it was, but she was doing well up until the point where she said the N-word. Okay. And immediately the crowd went from cheering her to booing. Now, oddly enough, from the person who took the video, that person sounded like they were white, and it seemed like from the crowd probably been a like good mix of both races. So it wasn't just like a bunch of black people booing a white girl. If that's what you want, if that's the hot take you're trying to take from it, it's not accurate.
Okay.
But he stopped her, and it's funny because my first contact with the story came from like somebody retweeting something, the deplorable person that I know, as he likes to call himself. Like why would you even take that like a badge of pride? Like, I'm deplorable. Anyway, that's another tangent. But
Trying to not to touch it.
it was like somebody, I guess he worked for Fox, who framed it basically as like Kendrick Lamar basically just like, was hypocritically took white girl off stage because she said the N-word, even though he says it. But I was like, yeah, okay, you can make that argument all day, but at the end of the day, if you know intentionally something would make people uncomfortable, that don't mean that you should do it and say fuck you. I don't care if you're uncomfortable. Life don't work like that. There are, you can actually be a respectful human being, even if you don't agree with certain things. Something a lot of people don't know.
What are you talking about? The girl?
Yeah. Because it was like during the whole thing, Fox News did this whole article where they pretty much framed it like, oh, well, this is just hypocrisy for black people. But they tried to say like Kendrick Lamar was being mean and cruel to the girl.
So what did he say? Did he like criticize her?
No, and if you go to link, you can see the video. No, he was like, hold up, let's stop right now. I was like, you know what? This is my fault because I think my manager was, gave the rules. And he was like, yeah, we don't want you to just say that word because we don't want you to get, basically, he was very nice to the girl. He's like, yeah, you can't say that word. And she was just like, why, man? There's something wrong. Like, she's acting oblivious, like there was nothing wrong with her saying it. Which, that's another argument. But he was just like, out of respect for everybody, basically, that's just not, you just don't do that so you won't get into trouble. And it went from there. But they tried to frame it like he was just being very, very hostile and cruel to this woman for saying it. It's like, no. You look at the video. He was pleasant about it. He didn't get upset. He's like, you mad? He's like, no, I'm not mad at you. I'm just, just kind of watch that word, because you don't know how people are going to react to that. And people pretty much continued to boo her until she got off stage for that.
Well, I'm glad he had a mature reaction to that. But I don't see why she should get booed for saying it. I mean, she was reciting his lyrics that he wrote.
Yeah, understandable. But
like if I was quoting like an old book that used the word nigger in it, like if a white person especially was like quoting an old book that used the word nigger in it, I would not expect them to like bleep that part out. I would expect them to just say it.
At the same time, I use it like the argument that I make is like, yeah, I hear women call themselves bitches all the time. I'm not going to walk into a conversation with a woman and address her as bitch, because I know what that means when it comes from a guy towards a woman. So therefore, even though I may think, why can't I say this? Out of respect for someone else, I'd be like, okay, I'm just not going to do that because I don't want to get into a running argument about this. It's not worth the argument. It's not worth, the hostility. It's not worth,
Yeah, I mean, I'm speaking to someone who hasn't like looked at this story. I think you sent it to me before we started, but I didn't get a chance to read it or anything.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be bothered that she said it, I guess, as a black person, because it's not like she's just walking up and being like, "What's up, my nigga?" in the conversation. She's reciting lyrics. It's like
no,
when you're
I think
quoting
part
a
of
person,
the,
you have to say what they said.
Not necessarily.
Well, I absolutely don't agree.
You can't
like,
censor.
somebody.
You don't have to. Like, the thing is, you don't have to. You can censor it if you choose to.
I do not agree at all. I feel like if you're going to
you don't think you have the choice if you want to or not?
You can. I'm saying you should quote them exactly.
I don't think you should
That's
necessarily do
stuff
that.
if you want. But like,
I don't think in every situation. Honestly, I don't think in every situation you should quote them. Again, it goes to like you have to read the room, in my opinion. Sometimes.
So, for example, like when people on the news want to quote somebody who said something naughty or whatever, and they like bleep out a curse word, that bothers me because I'm like, no, say what they said, or don't quote them. Like, I don't want to hear. Like, don't do that.
Why does that bother you? I was confused as to why that bothered you.
I think it's because like my interest in writing. Like when I take a quote pretty seriously, so I always try to make it as exact as possible. And if it's not a quote, like I'll usually point out that I'm paraphrasing or something. Like, I don't know, it might just be a pet peeve of mine in particular, but I feel like if you are quoting somebody, you should quote them.
Yeah, nah, I've had no issue. I mean, again, it goes back to me thinking, just read the room. If I'm in a room full of like, say you're in a room with a family member who doesn't curse and doesn't like to hear curse words, you're not just going to curse around them just because you feel like you should be able to like curse as freely as you want, right?
No, but that's also not quoting anybody. Like it's.
But if you say
like,
you had to quote something that had profanity in it, would you do that?
I was in a room with people that didn't like it.
Like people who were uncomfortable with that, would you still do it?
Yes, I'd still do it. Like, and again, maybe that's just something weird with me, but like, you know, what you're saying about in kindness to them, you know, refraining from using certain words. Because I use profanity a bunch, and I would definitely not do it just because. But I feel like if I'm going to quote somebody, I would actually just say like, you know, apologies ahead of time. I'm quoting this, and it says this, and I feel like that should be understood. Like my.
But you can't get your
point. Like I'm consistent there. Like I would actually just quote it as it's written.
Yeah, and I find that weird that you don't feel like you can still make the quote and have it being understood without saying that.
There's just something about the integrity of the message there that would not allow me to. Because like you might even see like when I'm writing stuff, when I use single quotes, I usually mean like I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember what the exact quote is. But when I'm using double quotes, I probably like looked it up and like copy and pasted it. So I don't argue that everybody is that stringent on that, but it's that strict about exact quoting. But even when I'm writing, I'm very hard on that point. It's one of the few things I take like a hard line on when I'm writing.
It's very, very interesting because, like, I don't see the issue with like just being like, you know what, I don't want to offend. Like, and again, it's a personal choice thing. It's like I don't feel the need to. It's not going to like change the gravity of that's the funny thing that I find in that whole argument. Like, it doesn't actually change the weight of the quote if you do blanket because people. At least most people that I talk to are pretty savvy enough to get what I'm trying to say without me actually saying it. So,
I actually don't agree with that point either. Like I do think, and that part might be part of the reason.
Again, like I said, most people I know can, but it's like if I say,
you probably like guess the word or you can say what it was, but like I do feel like auditorily, like when you hear it, there is a difference.
I honestly don't think it makes that big of a difference in most cases. Because you can work.
So to point out like how much of a psycho I am, like I have this friend on Facebook who will like, you know, write these cute little posts or whatever, and they're in quotes, and I have to restrain myself every time from saying you didn't cite that quote. Like we don't know who that comes from. Like that's how much it bothers me.
Really?
And the fact that she does not give a source for the quote and is using quotation marks drives me insane. But I'm also trying to not be a dick, so I haven't said anything about
that. That is weird. That is very, very strange to me. Like, I mean, I get it, but I just like, yeah, okay. Interesting.
I know, because as I was going through school, I always really liked writing. So there's certain rules that come with writing that I just do not usually give a pass on. Like if I was grading that and I saw that, it would be a huge red mark for me to not be citing a quote.
Really? So even if they just edit it, like put first letter, put asterisk in the middle, put last letter, that would bother you?
I don't know what you mean. Asterisk in the middle, last.
You've never seen people write curse words out like that? Like I have done it with titles.
Yeah, I don't like it. It bugs me.
That's so fucking weird to me. God damn it.
Like if it's not in a quote, I normally don't notice, but if it's in a quote, I'm like, I'm pretty sure they didn't say F asterisk exclamation. Like,
well, that's what I'm saying. It's like you still get the meaning though. Like
no, it breaks the rules. But like I said, I'm not using that as just a very strong objective argument. That's more of a one of my personal failings, probably. But,
yeah, no, you're just a fucking writing czar. Like, oh god.
I mean, so when I was in high school, I was like in a AP English, right? It was like during my sophomore, junior year or something. And when I was a senior, I was a teacher's aide for that class. And I remember
you had to be the most hated kid.
That was the time I learned that maybe I'm too much of a dick when it comes to writing, because I remember I was like, grading some stuff or writing on pages, and my teacher pulled me aside and she's like, she pointed out this thing that I wrote on one of the papers, and it was, one of the rules she had said was like, don't use first person, like I, blah, blah, blah. This is not one of those papers where you use the first person. And somebody did that, and like, I guess without thinking, I wrote, they had written like, I think ... and I was like, nobody cares what you think. Stop saying that. And I guess that was the first time I realized I'm kind of a dick when it comes to writing.
I guess when it comes to writing in like speech, you are a dick, because like I don't know.
Even in college, like we had these senior research papers, and we like traded back and forth and like wrote on them. And when I gave the one I got back, the dude was like, "How much red ink do you have?"
Oh wow.
So,
but going back to this thing, I found the argument behind it pretty funny. Like, I know Vince Staples said that he hates these arguments, but he wouldn't elaborate on why he hates the argument of it. I could partially see why he hates it, though. At least if I were to speculate why he hates it, it's because it's like, I do get the whole idea of if they're quoting a song, cool, but at the same time, I just feel like you just avoid fights, because I feel like a lot of people do it just to have the fight. That's one of the problems. It's like if you just were reciting a song, like, because like if you look at her reaction, it kind of was like, I don't know if she's high or something. She's just like, "What's the problem? I don't know what's the problem." Like in a like very smug voice. It's like your reaction is very, very smug. Like did you go up there? I mean, say, "Oh, I said that. Oh, my bad." Like she's kind of laughing it off. Like, are you being a dick? Are you?
Notice?
Yeah, it's like, are you being a dick?
Possible she didn't notice, because like when you like reciting music and shit, you kind of go on autopilot sometimes.
But it's like I was trying to read, because like her reaction was very like, "Are you just high, or are you just being this prick about it?"
Yes.
And
so I will say, like, if somebody chose to censor themselves, I wouldn't like kill them, but like, I guess it just doesn't bother me as much, and it makes me question the choice of writing a lyric like that. If it's, I don't know, I don't mean to attack the artist here, but she said that because it was in your song, right? Like, so is that
and again, like I said, to his credit, he didn't like go overboard on that matter. Like,
no,
some
my
people,
point is that it goes back to the age-old argument of if the word is that bad, why do black people use it as well?
Yeah,
it's like,
and that's why I was like, I can understand why Vince Staples said like he hates that argument, because you do have that sense of that. Yeah, you can make that. Mind you, we know most people who make that argument are people who are not black, who just want to be able to say the word for some odd reason, which
sure.
Always brings to mind, like, why are you so pressed to say a word that you just literally just told me in your argument for you to say the word was a word that even black people shouldn't say? like that makes no sense. You want to argue that we shouldn't say it because of the divisiveness and the origins and the connotation that it held at one time, but you want to demand your right to be able to say it off of that. Okay.
It's a weird. It's always I you know what? I don't know who this dude you're talking about is, but I can definitely understand the resistance to having that argument because it's a weird.
You don't know who Vince Staples is? God,
what's his name?
Vince Staples. Yeah. Oh my God.
That owns Staples.
Even I know that, and he's not even from my era.
I mean, sorry, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know who the fuck this guy is.
Wow. Your black card is just so fucking weird. Like every snippet, sir. No,
I'm not sure if I was ever actually issued one in the first place. I can see, why that conversation is a bit tiresome because it is an odd area of discussion because, I mean, obviously you do understand why Black people are bothered by the casual use of that word by white people given the historical, context of it, but it's like, it doesn't really seem to make sense to me to have a word that people can't use either. So.
Well, it's funny because you brought up Trevor Noah a while back. He actually framed that pretty good when he was making an argument about the whole thing. How in South Africa there's a word, I forget what it was, but there's a word which during apartheid a lot of white people used to refer to Black people. And then once apartheid ended, the government got together and they made like the decision to ban that word, and there was this lady who actually got arrested for using that word. That's how offensive it is in that country. That you can have you could be arrested and fined for using that word towards a Black person in that country, and that's their choice. He was like, well, here, it's become some of a cultural thing of Blacks. And it's like, yeah, you can make that argument about like whether people should use it or not, but it's clear that this is something that they are comfortable with for themselves, but not comfortable with hearing it from people who used to use it, in a oppressive manner. So while you may not agree, sometimes you just need to like disrespect people's feelings on a matter. Just don't.
So in this country,
that
are Black people allowed to use that word? Are Black people allowed to use whatever word he was talking about? Is it banned across the board?
Now that's a good question. I don't think he clarified that, but I'm assuming it's a banned across the board. It's banned. I believe he said it's banned across the board. It's just like we don't say that
because
he said like no, in South Africa, none of him or his friends use that word as a term amongst each other. It's like nobody uses it anymore at all within.
I feel like that is a key difference there, where it's like, because there's consistency across the board, so it's fair. I'm using air quotes here. Like the difference here is that Black people can use the word and they use it quite a bit.
Yeah.
So it's not like.
But it's like.
Well, first of all, as an American, I don't really agree with the idea of banning a word and making it illegal. But at least in their case, it is consistent and equal all the way across.
But is it not socially consistent, seeing that it's generally the word that we use for whatever reason in a positive manner, and generally speaking, when it's said by a white person, it's used in a negative? I mean, there are
if it was said in a positive, it would still be a problem. I mean, even her, like, I doubt she said it in a particularly negative way. She just said it as part of a song, and she got booed off stage. Like.
No, but I mean, certain things connect. Again, I can't run up and be like, "Hey, bitch," even if I'm just trying to be like playful and friendly like a woman, because generally speaking, when men use that, I guess it's kind of like I guess it's just one of those things that it's like it's a socially engineered, maybe, or I don't know what the term is, but it's just like you react certain ways to certain things because of history or whatever.
No, I definitely understand the emotional impact of the word, given the context we've been in. But it doesn't seem sustainable to me or sensible. Like it is a little hard for me to defend when people say like white people can't say that word when black people are using it day and night. Like, so I feel like in Trevor Noah's case, it kind of made sense because they just erased the word essentially. Because when you look at language and how it evolves through history, obviously a lot of words just become pretty much never used anymore. So in their case, they pretty much just kind of phased the word out of their lexicon, right? Which is not what we've done. That is the difference here. We kept the word around. We just said some people can't use it and others can. And it's not even just like black people only,
but I mean, don't we always make certain social distinctions and social like accepted levels for certain things to be done in society, like not just here, but period. That we not all of us are going to agree on, but there are certain social standards within groups that you could come to an understanding. I mean, personally, I try not to use the word because I don't think that we should continue to use that word. But I feel like if you're somebody of another color, you just need to not put yourself in that position to where you're getting these. I mean, again, I just go back to the word bitch. I'm not going to go around calling women bitches. I'm not trying to like sit here and get into arguments like, yeah, I can make the point that why you guys call each other that, but it's not going to come out well for me because generally speaking, that word when associated with my sex is always going to have some type of emotional reaction. That
I certainly do think the user of the words should be motivated at least to acknowledge that there is a negative connotation, and if they accept that, fine. But even the bitch thing, like I don't know, maybe it's too much to ask for, but I just want something that is for everybody. Like I don't want to get into this game of like, well, he can say it, but she can't, and it's because you get into these conversations, right? Like it becomes a weird thing because what I was about to say was, it's not like only black people can say the N-word. Like pretty much non-white people in general can say the N-word. Maybe not all, Asians, but like
Hispanics.
But even Hispanic people I've seen. Pretty much, if you're like brown, you can kind of get a pass. You might get like a little weird look here and there, depending on how brown you are. But like, I've seen even like pretty light-skinned Hispanics get away with saying that word with no problem. And when I say light-skinned, I mean like Spanish from Spain, which is in like Europe. You know what I mean? Like, so even that line of like only black people can say that is not true in practice. So I don't know, playing this game of who gets to say it and who doesn't becomes annoyingly complicated.
But it shouldn't be a game to me because it's like I shrug my shoulders. It's like whatever. I'm not that pressed to say it, so why? But I feel that people who are very, very pressed to say it aren't pressed to say it because they feel like their rights are violated. I really feel like it's like that Fox article that addressed that tweet that I got put up talking about how like he assaulted her for saying the word, and Basher's like, no, he didn't. Like your whole argument is based around is like you want to be able to say it and get away with it, knowing that you don't necessarily want any type of equality. You just want the right to like get. I feel like that's the problem with this whole argument is that it's not necessarily somebody trying to like, because if I were to get into that argument, I would come off on the basis of, nobody should say it. You know what I mean? I'm not fighting for the right to call a woman a bitch. I don't think women should necessarily call themselves a bitch. So if you want to ask me how I feel about it, I'm not going to be like, well, I should be able to say it too, bitch, or anything like that. You know what I mean?
And no, there's definitely people who, I think, which is what you're pointing to, their motivation for wanting to say it is not clean. Like, I don't know. There's something mildly racist about them, which is essentially why they want to use the word, or They just don't care at all that it has a negative connotation. There's just something a bit off about their motivations, which I do find a problem.
All right.
And I guess I don't know. I don't even know where I would stand on that issue as far, because I feel like I would lean more toward like what you said. Like, if it's truly a bad word, let's just remove it from general use for everybody. But you know,
no, I'm not saying the whole ban the word thing, but like everybody come to like a hey, we shouldn't be saying this, and like it just become a social norm not to say that. It's just like you can do that.
I don't even know if I should say this word, but because I'm actually a little curious whether younger people are familiar with the term faggot.
Yeah.
How often do you hear that word anymore?
But that's a good example, because you don't really hear anybody use that, because sometime along the line, you know, as gay rights start to become more focused on, people like coming from my generation, that word was used all the time. It was used very loosely. Generally, it wasn't necessarily to disparage a homosexual person, but the whole connotation was to challenge your manhood. I called you that to say like you're less than a man, and things like that.
I remember it being used more like online gaming and shit, which is where I became more familiar with it than homosexuality itself. But you know,
yeah, no, it's very much the like how like if you call another dude who camps a bitch, that was the way that we used that word back in the day. And like you said, in the early online gaming, it was prevalent. But once people started to become a lot more like understanding and sensitive towards gay rights, they were like, yo, we're just not gonna really use this word no more. So you don't really hear it. You hear some older people may spit it out now and then, but for the most part, we came to a social agreement somehow where we don't use that word. It's not a part of our,
I would say there was some brief time where I think gay people would use it, but it's fairly rapidly, it just got phased out. And the reason I felt the need to actually say the word in full is because I wasn't sure if anybody would know what I meant if I said like.
No, some people probably don't remember that word or know what it is. I mean, and if you look it up, you're not going to find what we're saying, maybe, because it actually is a real word that's used for something. It's actually a piece of wood.
So it's like,
but
there wasn't like a law passed or anything that said you can't use that word. It's just that we, as a society, had this implicit, notion that it was bad. So we just stopped using it over time, and now you just never hear it, to the point where I felt like I had to use the full word because I didn't know how to describe it otherwise, especially to younger people who didn't grow up with that word around.
Yeah, because we've gotten past the point where that's even, you can go, well, the F word. The people are like, what? You mean fuck? Like, you know what I mean?
Yes, and if somebody did use the word now, you would be more justified in criticizing them strongly because all of society has agreed that it's bad.
Yeah.
Which you can, argue about how valid taboos and shit should be in general, but all of us across the board have pretty much acknowledged that we shouldn't use the word. So it makes it simpler to deal with if it ever comes up. It never does, usually in practice. So most of the time it doesn't matter. But if, say a politician got up and just said that word right now, we could all just rain hellfire on them because we've all acknowledged that it's bad. Yeah. Whereas like the N-word is a little bit more complicated because we haven't had that unified acceptance that it's bad. Black people and some non-black people are still using it, even in a positive way in some cases. So it's like, it makes it a lot more difficult to deal with than other words that we just phase out. I don't know if people use terms like, what do they used to call like Hispanic people? Like, I was about to call them rednecks, wetbacks or whatever.
I know the word. Okay, so I'm going to say this. Apologies to people.
Sure.
Because it's like, I know what you're talking about, because like I watch a lot of older movies, especially like when they do the like era movies, and they always use it. But like, spick would be one.
Yes, that was weird. And again, of course, apologies for using these words.
Wetback was another like thing that they use, which I don't.
But like, how often do you hear those words anymore? Right? Like, nobody uses them. They became gross.
Yeah.
You know, they became gross sounding in everybody's mouth, and we just stopped. But like with the N word, how black people sound kind of cool when they say it. Like, it just doesn't have the full. I think, you know, maybe that's the difference. Like, we never used those other words in positive ways. So
yeah, nobody ever really like made that. It's like I mean, and even though I hate the argument, I do understand the argument about how we turned this into a term of endearment and positivity that can't, quote unquote, hurt us as much as it used to and all that. Although I debate that can't hurt us because you wouldn't perk up and get fucking rigid when a white person said it if it didn't hurt you. It's like your argument does not make sense, sir. But that's neither here nor there.
I definitely agree. That's kind of the problem, because their justification for keeping it around is that they've made it a positive, but obviously they haven't, because we're still having this argument where people can't use it because it feels negative. So like you've made it both positive and negative in weird fucking ways. So I think that's the reason it persists. Unlike every other what do you call them? Derogatory term, because that is really the only one we really use very positively. You mentioned like bitches used somewhat positively, but not anywhere near on the level the N word is used positively.
I would say it has become that way.
If you look less, like I remember at some point people were using the term bitch like in a friendly way, but even then I feel like it's fading.
Maybe I just hang in the weird circles, because I still see people who still address these like.
Because like, so I guess I'll put it this way: like I was talking to a friend earlier, and I called him a bitch, but like, it's not like it's a term of endearment per se. It's just a weak insult now. Like it's still an insult as we use it, but it just lost all of its venom, which makes it kind of playful.
Generally, I use it in two ways. If I really can't stand a person, or like I have an issue with it, and I'll be like, "You son of a bitch," or "You bitch," things like that. Or if I say something like, how you use it with me in God of War, like, don't be a bitch. Go ahead and like, it's like you're not seriously, calling. You're using it in sarcastic, playful tones.
Right.
Like I don't discriminate. I don't care whether you're male or female. You're a bitch. If I don't like you and you get on my fucking nerves, you're a bitch.
So I think part of and this is an interesting discussion about like the evolution of derogatory terms, but I think with that particular word, it's like, well, first of all, there was no like racial barrier or anything, so everybody was using it. And second, I think it got used so much it just lost its potency over time. Like, and you see that with certain curse words too. Like, I'm trying to think of a good curse word. I think fuck still has
damn, hell,
and those, like,
ass. Is in particular ass. Ass has lost the connotation I know that it had before, because I remember growing up, to hear someone say the word ass was a moment. Now they say ass so much. It's like, ass. Okay.
And it's not like that's not an example of a word we've agreed is bad, so we stopped using it. It's just we used it so much that the meaning was now.
Its impact was deflated, because like it used to. I remember like seeing old documentaries and things like that about movies and how they used the word hell, and how like people would just like, oh my God, can't believe he said that in the movie. And it's just like, really? Y'all mad over hell? And then how it's evolved now to where you see even some shows these days, in particular on cable, and this actually happened on network TV with NYPD Blue. Occasionally they would let it slip as long as they put a warning before, but you see stronger words like fuck and shit show up on regular programming. And it's just like those words are like being less impactful as they were. Like people are getting more used to that stuff.
And so that's I think there's two ways right there that those words tend to phase out / become weak. One is either we all agree that they're bad, so we stop using them, or we overuse them to the point where they just don't mean very much anymore. And I don't think the N word has succumbed to either one of those.
No,
issues.
the N word is like the one word that's in this country that still sits in that like divisive middle ground. Like no one wants to lean one way or another and come to a consensus on that word. And that's why I wanted to bring this up, because it's like it's just fascinating to see like how people frame this argument on each side.
And I hadn't thought about it in too much detail, but now that I think about it, I don't know how that problem ever goes away, because it's not going to be one of those words that gets so negative that we just agree to stop using it because too many people use it positively. And it's not going to lose its potency because, well, for one, not everybody can use it. So it's not like so widely and common.
But no, it's like when it's used in it's funny because I think what's the problem is in the positive light, it's used in a manner that's so, like you said before, it sounds cool when we say it. It sounds so cool, especially in music. You know, when you hear rappers like rhyme with it and all that, it comes off as like, you know, this really like flashy, cool thing. Whereas when it's used in a negative terms, it's usually a very impactful, vulgar thing, like the Charlottesville incidents where people walking around and screaming that word, or you know, there's violence towards black people, like a cop calls a black person a nigger while they're beating the shit out of them. It's like the connections in the arenas and when they're used on both ends of the spectrum kind of lend to like both that those sides led to why it's so like it is in a way, because it's just like, yeah, it's a very strange, fascinating word that, you know, doesn't even exist in dictionaries anymore yet.
And I
don't go away.
You know, I'm sure part of the reason it persists and has its negative connotation still is just because, unlike a lot of those, well, maybe that's not fair. I was gonna say unlike a lot of those other words, there's a stronger history behind it. But you know, because slavery was a very serious fucking thing, or not just slavery, but racism in general was a very serious fucking thing throughout American history. So I think there's just more historical weight behind that word than a lot of other words. So I'm gonna acknowledge that there's more power to it because of the context. But I still do think those other things are factors. Just the way we use the word and who can use the word and all that shit. I think it holds that word in a different class that we can't seem to get it out of. And we don't seem to have any interest because I don't know. It's a weird thing because it's not like, as much as I want to argue for just equality, like either everybody can use the word or everybody can't. I'm not very passionate about the argument that, yeah, white person, you can call me a nigger, like if you want, you know, big deal, right? Like, it's not something I'm fighting for. I'm not fighting for like white people's rights to call me a nigger.
No, please, no, because again, you're gonna get those ones who are gonna be, oh, bet it's open season, let's go, and then be like, I like how that girl kind of was on stage, like, what, bro? I don't understand. What's the problem? Like,
sure.
Like, you know, you just want to get punched in your
But even beyond those people, there is, like, even if a white person would just be in completely natural and friendly and all that shit, it would still feel a little off.
Yeah, no, it's funny. You just reminded me. We had a white dude who ended up getting into hip hop in high school, and he started using that word, and we were just like, "Yo, look, you cool, but we gonna need you to stop right now." You know, and it was like he didn't understand why, like, he should like settle down with that shit, because it was like he just discovered like a new joy in life, something like that. And he just, I mean, like I'd never eat. It's like it was his first taste of chocolate, ironically, and he just couldn't stop.
Hip hop has been a fairly ubiquitous thing, at least in America, like, and abroad too. Like, a lot of us tend to think of it as just something Black people like made up and only we do and are interested in. But a lot of people, like non-Black people, hell, they probably grew up on hip hop. Like they're not just listening to rock and shit.
Again, me being from that era where hip hop made the rise, I'm not going to act like the Beastie Boys didn't exist. Beastie Boys were one of the most pivotal, influential groups in hip hop history. Like they were one of the first mainstream hip hop groups, along with Run DMC. You know, so I act like they didn't exist. Like there was a bunch of white boys doing this hip hop thing
I mean,
back then.
I don't know. I feel like a lot of people assume when they see a white person that maybe they weren't as into hip hop, but I've certainly seen and met white people who are like way more into the hip hop history and culture than me. Like, which I guess for me isn't saying very much because as a bar I'm pretty low. But I mean, you get my point. Like, some of them were deep into this shit, and if they were, I'm sure they were hearing that word in their ears like nonstop.
Yeah. Again, I'm gonna need you to like have a skin test sometimes because you just no, I'm kidding.
How many times can you hear the N word in your ear and not just like think of it as like a common word that you just hear all the time?
No, I mean, but it's just like the other words. Like, there was a time, like you mentioned the word faggot. There was a time I used to hear that all the time around me. It was a common word, and now it has grown from that, and it's went away.
I heard it the other day in like a freestyle or some shit. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's funny. I was listening to some old hip hop, and I was like, yo, we used to say this word a lot back then. Like, yeah, because like he really, and the way he said it, it was like extra stress. Like he was like enraged when he said it. It's like, yo, I kind of felt myself like, okay, it's like I was reciting the lyrics, and he got to that part, and I was like, yeah, I can't say that. I'm sorry.
I think Eminem used the word faggot like a few songs ago or a few albums ago or something.
In his early stages of his career, that's the funny part.
Not me more recently, like because I remember it being like a point of contention for people that he did.
I can't remember, but
not like very recent. It was like a few years ago or something.
That brings to mind like what we were saying about some stuff. What was it that we were talking about? How recent, like G4, how a lot of that stuff was recent. Like it's just been recently that a lot of the like things like you said, the use of, I remember when bitch used to be used heavily. That wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that long ago when the F word was used that much, you know.
No, it certainly was. Like I remember it. Hell, I remember it like maybe up until early high school, or I feel like it was starting to fade around my friend group, at least in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, because at some point, like I remember somebody saying it in college and like my freshman year, and I never really heard it again. It just kind of vanished all of a sudden. But maybe it was like a revival or something. It was like one of Eminem's, a couple of the tracks, and he used that word, and it was like people cared. And I thought that was odd because I was like, I'm sure he did that shit back in like early 2000s and 90s and shit, and it was just normal. Like,
yeah, if it was a revival, then that was about 7 years ago.
It wasn't like, I'm not gonna overplay it like it was.
But
like,
it means, yeah, to the point. It's just like, you know, but things have progressed to change. They don't use it no more. Like,
so, as far as this, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how I feel about what's her face on stage there, without having like.
Yeah, like I'm not upset like with her. I don't think like people should.
I'm thinking about like the crowd reaction, like the booer off stage is. I don't know. I guess it at least opens up this conversation, which, as odd as it is to have, is an interesting conversation. Like,
yeah, I know.
I never know quite where to stand with it.
Yeah, I don't think that they. Well, I understand the reaction. I guess I don't think they should have kept doing it and booing her because they ended up making her like mess up. Like she didn't say the N word again. I don't think in the second part, but she just like couldn't do the challenge because she was actually doing well. It was like a game that he plays. Like see who can say his lyrics and then. You know, whatever. And like after that, she was just like shook out of like her vibe and couldn't do it. But you know, commend Kendrick for taking the high road with that and not just being like, "What the fuck you say, bitch? What the fuck you saying?" Like just acting the fool. Like,
he could have done that.
like
He apparently would have had an arena on his side. So.
Yeah, he reacted calmly. He was just like, "Yo, yeah, don't
I'm not familiar with that. Well, I know who he is, but I'm not that familiar with his music or anything. But sounds like a cool dude.
Again,
the question needs to be asked.
Lord, this man just won a fucking goddamn he won a Nobel Award. You don't know who he is. What's wrong with you?
I know who he is. I just don't listen to his music.
God damn it! You need to listen to Kendrick Lamar.
That's
what. Again, this is like the old man telling you this. I barely listen to any modern hip hop, and I was. I should say something.
I mean, obviously he's big because I don't listen to it and I know who he is. So that is a testament, I guess.
He is one of the rare. He's one of the rarities to me in music. Like he's a socially conscious person who's over musically. He's not just sitting there talking about fucking scissor. Like, damn it, you need to listen to the Black Panther soundtrack. Shit, that was amazing.
Yeah. So I appreciate him being reasonable because that's certainly something we lack a lot. But does it not at least bring up the discussion about using the word in your music? Because if we're talking about this word continuing to exist in our general vernacular, rap is a huge reason for it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like black people in general use that word, but I'm sure most white people are just kind of hearing it in music more than they're hearing it just from black people commonly. And the rap music uses it a lot. It probably uses it more than the word like the or a or whatever. Like, it's a common word. Probably the most common word.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is.
And despite what a lot of people think, rap has a wide and deep reach with everybody but me. So,
God, what is wrong with you?
so I mean, just it's worth thinking about how responsible.
As an aside, I need to know, what are your favorite artists?
What?
What would be your favorite artist right now? I'm just curious.
It's probably still Eminem, I guess.
No, I mean artist, period. Like as a whole. Like name some of the people that you listen to. Because okay, you listen to Eminem, that's cool. But you clearly don't listen to any other rap but Eminem.
I mean, like I don't really.
I'm curious, like what's your
really
heavy rotation play? I'm just curious, what's the heavy rotation for your playlist as far as music?
If I also could look on my phone, like I think there's some stuff from like Childish Gambino. I had a few months ago came across. Well, I was about to call him Tyler the Creator, Chance the Rapper. Every once in a while, I just like YouTube like random freestyle shit, like from Team Backpack or whatever. I have like a bunch of shit from Fozzy. I mean, not much, man. Like normally when people see me with headphones on, they think I'm listening to music, but I'm usually listening to like books.
Fair enough.
Or I guess nowadays like news and random shit. There's I don't know. This is like a random clusterfuck of just random songs I might hear on the radio every once in a while or something stupid. There's no rhyme or reason to this this group of songs.
You know, because I listen to like a bunch of different stuff, but I do get my moods where I just want to listen to a bunch of hip hop. Like right now, I'm in a hip hop mode, so all I play on my commute is hip hop. But I've listened to a bunch of different things. I was just curious if there was a particular genre that you focus on, or you just spread across.
I mean, no, that was struck me as odd because I remember when I was growing up. Or hell, even recently, like when I went to New York, I had my headphones on and I was listening to music, and like my cousin, asked me what I was listening to, and I played a song, and it must have been like one of the new songs from that Fozzy album, Judas or whatever. And they seemed shocked that I was listening to rock, and I was like, I mean, that is a kind of music.
Yeah, although I feel like you only listen to that because of Chris Jericho. So,
I don't know.
I actually didn't know it was him the first time I heard that. I can't remember the name of the song.
Did you hear that?
I heard something weird.
Yeah, apparently my Echo Spot must have thought she heard her name.
Maybe it was Enemy or something. I remember I heard some song from them before I knew it was like Chris Jericho's band. It might have been Enemy, but
Hold on, Alexa, are you hearing things?
I'm not sure.
Did you hear that?
yeah, it was kind of creepy.
Okay.
The sad thing is she probably made the noise. So.
No, because that's the noise that you heard. She was responding. She was like, I don't know the answer to that. And I was like, wait, I didn't say your name. Like, are you feeding for attention, woman? Don't be like Detroit and come out.
You said Alexa, did you hear something?
No, but before she had responded to something I said that it must sound like her name.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, what the hell? That's why I asked her that question. 'Cause I'm like, girl, calm down.
But I remember when I was like, whatever the popular like bullshit rock was at the time when I was like in high school or middle school, I was listening to that shit too. Like, System of a Down was popular.
I
fucking
didn't listen
Nine Inch
to it,
Nails.
but I listened to Toxicity is a good song. I like that song.
Like there was a bunch of like a group of just rock shit that was popular at the time, and I was listening to all that shit back then. I've never been that fixated on one particular genre, even though, like being a black nerd, like being a black dude listening to white people music wasn't a very popular stance to take at the time either.
It's funny because we can go on a tangent with music, how the evolution of like what's quote unquote white music and what's not, considering that many people consider rock to be an invention of African Americans. And then all of a sudden it became white music. So
I remember when I first heard that argument, I was like, then why was I always getting shit all the time?
Right. It's like all of a sudden, like somehow it just like became socially unacceptable because you go back and listen to early Little Richard and Chuck Berry and all of those people, and you'd be like, yo, these are like the fathers of this genre. And they're black. Like, so why are we getting shit for being black? Yo, have you listened to In Living Color?
Yeah.
All black. And they've existed for a long time, and they're like one of the most popular groups. It's like
I actually didn't know they were black because I'm sure a lot of people heard of them from like Punk's theme song, Cult of Personality,
Yeah.
but I heard other songs from them. Like, I can't remember the names of these songs, but I used to have like a bunch of them on my phone at one point.
Well, let's be honest, it's Cult of Personality, the only one that really matters because it's clobbering time.
I don't think I even knew they were black until they showed up for like his WrestleMania match.
Yeah, he did the WrestleMania. I know.
I was like, whoa, like these guys are.
I think a lot of people like, what the fuck is this? Like, why are you stealing their song? Why get the real group out here? Like, nah. That's why I was hyped for that moment. It's like, yes, let him get like In Living Color out there. That's awesome.
Damn, that shit threw me off, So I can't pretend I was like such a. Again, for me, it's never been about like, the personalities. It's just been about the music. So I'd heard a bunch of their songs. I just didn't notice, I guess, that they were black. But I know that was a little bit of a tangent. But yeah, this. I don't know if you listened to non-rap songs when you were growing up. I definitely got shit. You know what? I'll say this: I got so much shit that like even. Up until fairly recently, I wouldn't like, if I was listening to say some rock song or something. I noticed at some point a couple years ago that like if a black person walked by me, I would switch it to a rap song because I got so much shit as a kid that I just didn't want to deal with it. So at some point, I just got into the habit of doing that without even noticing.
Yeah, see, that's the fascination because yes, back in the 80s, late 70s, throughout the 80s, we did because actually what there used to be was even though MTV did exist, you had Friday night videos. You had local channels show video blocks where they would do a roundup of like the hottest songs right now. And we would get Huey Lewis in the news and things like that. so we would listen to that stuff, but this was like Friday night after, like, you know, it's late, you can't go outside and play no more. We just sit around and watch these videos. So yeah, we were aware of them, but it's kind of like how you were saying. But when you were around your friends, oh, is this all hip hop, R&B? Well, you know, and well, here we have a genre of music called go-go music. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but yeah. So you would listen to the local brand music, or you would listen to R&B, hip hop, of course. You know, being black. But you did get exposed to this stuff. And you did listen to that stuff, and you did like that stuff. But it was only like the Friday night thing was the only time you really indulged in it. But no, we listen. We know a lot of that stuff. We just played it off, I guess. And then once urban stations started to become more prominent, and then BET came into, well, once BET came into the situation, it was a wrap for most of us. Like, we didn't even care to watch, like, because MTV was at one point the only place late at night where you could see hip hop, and then BET came, and it's like, oh, now we get all hip hop, R&B too. And that's where it kind of like the whole listening to everything thing probably faded out in Black America, because we had our own channel, quote unquote.
That is a wider view of that issue than I certainly had. All I knew was that it was just one more reason for people to call me white.
But yeah, no, and that's the thing. That's how
it was like, you know, nerd shit, speaking proper English, rock music. At some point, you get tired of it. You just.
But no, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't that you were necessarily white if you listened to that stuff. It was like, oh yeah, you like that stuff too. But yeah, somehow it became like that's the white people's music, and it's like, no, it's not. If you actually took a minute and looked at the history and the culture, like, no.
It almost made you look like, at least when I was addressed, it made you look like kind of a traitor if you listen to that music. Like, that's white music. Like, why would you listen to that?
Yeah,
got this rap over here. Like,
that's the connotation it came to. It's like, yeah, again, your level of blackness, your black card had to be tested.
But even like the less cool shit, like Green Day, fucking All American Reaches. I remember like must have been like early 2000s, whatever. There was like a group of those things that were just really popular, and they showed up on TV all the time. I listened to that shit a bunch.
Yeah.
Plus, I feel like that was like, at least for my age group, the time when a lot of white people were going through their more emo phase. I say white. I don't know if like black people had that.
I've never met a black emo. I mean, no, I take that back. I've seen a couple, but generally we're mixed, which is funny.
You know what? I might have like a very minor form of that, because I remember I was just getting into Photoshop, and I had a couple of photos of myself that I photoshopped into like. You know what? I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Oh, sometimes it's best not to talk about the phases that you went through.
I was talking to like a friend of mine who's, you know, she's a white or whatever, and like she was remembering with shame, I guess, over her like emo phase. And then I remember stumbling across a couple of pictures. I'm like, oh my god, I wouldn't call it an emo phase, but it was a little too close for comfort.
Yeah, no, I think we've all ran through some strange like ideas and phases.
But is there any responsibility in the rap community for using the N-word a bunch? I say responsibility as though we all accept that the goal is to get rid of the word, when I guess that's not true.
Yeah.
Maybe that's my goal.
But I mean, you know, it's an interesting argument for them to have. I mean, they can address it if they really want to. But I guess nobody really wants to, just get them paid anyway. So, man, whatever.
I'm not saying I blame rappers for white people using the N-word per se. I'm just saying your use of it is a factor for why it's still around, I think. Because I do think if it wasn't for the heavy use in rap, there's a better chance it would have faded away by now, like a bunch of the other words did.
Yeah. It's interesting. I would love to hear people's opinion of this. So please leave a comment.
Yeah. Not one that calls me a nigger, but maybe black. I won't complain too much if you call black and like,
I guess whatever. I wouldn't like say anything. I just feel like whatever.
you just feel all justified. Like, I told you everybody's still racist.
Yeah, basically.
Nothing ever changes.
Although will say this before we close out, I do find it hilarious when racist people use it because again, I know we try to say that it doesn't bother us, but for me, it's like it bothers me. Don't bother me, as in I find it bothersome that you still feel the need to use this word to try to hurt me and to like disparage me. But it doesn't bother me in the sense it's like that's very funny. It's like because I feel like in some cases a lot of people who use that word in a negative way use it as a last resort in arguments. I've ran into that situation. It's like you're having a discussion on a certain thing and it's just like basically you're beating the shit out of them in the debate on like certain racial stuff, and it's just like, you know, they throw it out just to like try to like push you back. It's like, oh, this is your tactic. This is how you're gonna unbalance me. Okay, cool.
Yeah. I've probably suggested this book already, but there's a book, The Language Instinct by Steven Pinker. He's a cognitive psychologist. I feel like there's probably a chapter or two in there about taboos as far as language goes. So I'll shout that book out at least one more time if I did already. I feel like I saw a talk with him that talked about language taboos as well. So if I can find it, I might drop a link down in the comment section later. I can never remember which one it is, but it was an interesting little discussion about the psychology of taboos.
Yeah, please do. But I think that's going to wrap it up. We will come back probably later this week. I have to figure out what day. I have 2 podcasts to do tomorrow. Yeah.
So we're going to say, like, he just hasn't had enough Trump. Can't get his goddamn fill.
Trust me, I've had more than enough fill of him. Ew.
Are you discussing the Detroit demo on one of these podcasts?
Yes, we will be on discussing that with.
So I'm just saying though, are all the androids adults? I'm just saying. I'm not gonna say any more than that. I was just gonna leave that.
Okay, creepy man. But do look out also for my after we finish this, I'm gonna go ahead and upload my thoughts and opinions video because that's ready to.
I hope you discussed what we talked about.
No, I did not.
Do another video.
Sure. Why is Cardiac such a creepy young man?
Okay. Sir, I'm just concerned about society. I feel like we're walking blindly into a trap. As part of that video, you should like link to the that video you sent me because that creeped me the fuck out.
Yeah, wasn't that? Oh my god, yes, that was creepy because that man, you could tell he's doing some weird things with androids. It's part of that is why I'm fascinated by this game, and I want to see just how like deep down the wormhole David Cage is going to go with this.
If anybody out there's got any like PS4 game suggestions for me, hit me with it because I played through the Infamous series over the last week or so. I stopped at Second Son. I didn't go into First Light because it looked like a spinoff to me, so I didn't bother. But Infamous 1, 2, and Second Son. Time to continue through my catch up on the PlayStation list there. I don't remember what's next. Maybe like Rust or something.
No, after Detroit comes out, we got a big lull unless something fascinating is coming out. I believe Spider-Man is the next big title. Unless somebody drops something over the summer, like I know there's gonna be like Dark Souls, maybe another remake of that.
I never played it. It sounded hard, and I like hard games, but I like games that can beat.
I know they're about to drop the other 3 Yakuzas on PlayStation 4. They're gonna do 2, 3, 4.
We'll see. I was just talking about shit in my lineup because like I should have written this down at some point because I knew I had these Detroit was coming up. There was like a couple games you suggested. Like, I thought it was Rust, but that's not it. It's like a fuck. I don't remember. It was like some game that had like good music or something.
I have to think about that, but no, there's a bunch. Yeah, send him game stuff so he can catch up on the world of gaming. Because once September comes, he's not going to have time to do anything with all the games that are coming out. God damn it! Red Dead on October 21st. Spider-Man September 7th. Tomb Raider September 14th. We're going to find out as of this recording tomorrow when Battlefield 5 is coming.
Doesn't matter to me. I'm garbage at those games.
Yeah, I love Battlefield though. I don't know why. I'm horrible, but I love it.
Nobody invite me to play that shit unless you're buying it for me and you're playing for me, because there's only so much frustration I can take in life.
But yeah, all right.
Anyway,
let's get out of here. So thank you again for watching, listening. Hope you guys enjoy it, and we will see you next time. So, Mr. Sumo, say goodbye to the people.
Sorry for the use of derogatory terms.
It was in context. Just remember that. It was in context. It wasn't like he's not gonna go in but like tweet it in like succession.
Sure. I'm not gonna do that. Delete. All right. But, I mean, you guys know I hate you all equally, so it's not like, I mean, I love you all equally, or whatever I said the first time. I have no prejudices. Speaking of, fuck, never mind. Next show.
All right, so we're leaving a cliffhanger. Thank you again, and we'll holler at you later. Peace.
Jesus.